Oh, here comes. Hey, welcome back to Hangin and Sangin. I'm Kelly from the Bluegrass Situation at Hillbilly Central with Shannon McNally, who just got out of her car, drove up from Oxford, Mississippi, just to be here with you guys, right here.
Yes,
thank you for doing that. Well, me, I'm just a facilitator. It's for the people. We're here for them.
Okay.
So you live in Oxford now.
I do.
You grew up in Long Island, though, right?
I was born up there.
Okay.
I grew up there, went to, until high school.
Okay. Connect the dots with, like, Long Island and blues, not an obvious pairing.
Well, people say that, but we grew up, I grew up with, that's where I heard the blues. So, growing up, we had a lot of live music. So we saw a lot of things that came through.
Oh, awesome.
And we had a couple of big radio stations out of New York City. One was called WNEW, and they were like the big Beatles station. So they were pretty, they had their library cards, they read liner notes. So I grew up hearing a lot of music. But I left Long Island to go to college in Lancaster, Pennsylvania.
Okay.
Which was another, and I grew up on a very blue collar working neighborhood on Long Island, and
so there's some blues happening.
Oh yeah,
some blue lives.
Oh yeah, there's lots of blue lives. Yeah, there's no getting around it.
Yeah.
But yeah, I didn't grow up in the South.
But you lived in New Orleans.
I sure
right?
did. Oh, yeah.
You spent some time in Paris.
Yeah, I lived in Paris for a year. I did a year of study in college in Paris. So after I left home, I went to college in Lancaster, Pennsylvania. I did a year abroad in Paris. And then after I came back, I went to Los Angeles. I got signed, and I said, all right, I guess that's where I
circus. Yeah.
I guess that's where I go.
Yeah.
So I went there, and when I burned out on L.A., I went to New Orleans, which is where that's how you do it.
Right.
It's like rehab.
Yeah.
It's emotional.
Where did
rehab.
I do I did my LA rehab up in the Catskills.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah. Anywhere wild and definitely very untamed, run by the forces of nature.
Yeah.
That's where you want to go when you have to, wash LA off.
Yeah.
Once you do, it's okay to go back and forth.
Exactly.
And I really appreciate it.
I was able to make my peace with it after, I was there for 10 years left, and then
you just have to have healthy breaks.
Yeah.
From it.
I agree. I agree with that. Now, having all of those various geographical touchstones, I'm always fascinated by how geography plays into an artist's work and how that influences your writing. So can you kind of go, oh, that's my New Orleans, that line or that riff. Do you hear it in that way, or is it all just sort of a nice little gumbo? You like how I did that?
I like that. It was really good. Very subtle. Yeah, well, I do hear the geography. I feel it. Once you do New Orleans, though,
right.
That shades everything forever. You know, that doesn't wash off. Luckily, that's a good thing.
Yeah.
But I learned a lot of professionalism in LA, and I got to make some right off the bat. That's the one. That's the one.
Yeah.
Right off the bat, I made a couple of records with just really, truly A-list people. Session players, Greg Lease and Ben Montench and
I love
Jim.
Greg Lease so much. As a guy and a player,
Greg was
one of the nicest guys in all of music.
Yes, and he was the one of two of the first people I met when I landed in L.A.
That's good.
He was kind of a guardian angel.
That's
and
a good route to have.
He explained a lot of things because you get there and everybody thinks you know what the hell you're doing. Sorry.
Okay.
And I had no idea. Yeah. You have to learn it. You need to develop your craft. You need to develop your business acumen. You need to understand touring. You need to understand your instrument. I mean, there's how you do it all at once. You can't without really good guiding forces. Yeah. So Greg was one of those. Yeah. But so I learned a good professionalism, and I learned, what it feels like when you're really in a room full of greats.
Yeah.
so that was forever hanging over my head because it's hard to reproduce
Sure.
on a regular basis without, without real hits and a lot of money, basically, because it's expensive.
Yeah.
But, and for good reason.
Yeah.
But, and then New Orleans, New Orleans teaches you a whole other way of playing and being and making music live, and and the real beauty about New Orleans is that it's truly integrated, and so you don't feel like you're like going to different countries. You don't feel like you need a passport to play the music. You feel like everybody's so that was, and then Mississippi. Sure, I mean I moved to Mississippi after Katrina. I was a Katrina refugee, actually.
Oh, wow.
So I've been in Mississippi 11 years. And
Wow.
It's nothing like anywhere else. It's completely unique unto itself.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, considering all of the A-listers you have worked with, what was the most surprising experience you had with someone who you would kind of consider a hero or a guy like that? Or gal.
Or gal.
We're not going to be sexist here.
No. I wish I had more experiences with more women in the music business, but it's a little light in the lady department, or it was in my experience. That's changing.
It's changing. Still, I was actually talking with Allison Brown and Jordan Brooke Hamlin last night, both female producers and players, about, like, at least on that side of the glass, the producing engineering, it's still so hard. To find women.
It's Well, one of my very best friends, Trina Shoemaker, is one of the
one of the best engineers working
in the world.
Yeah.
And she also happens to be a girl, so you can talk. You can you don't. There's a different stress level.
Yeah.
I mean,
Sure.
for me when I walk in the room.
Yeah.
But not that I don't love my dudes, because I love them.
Sure.
But the most exciting, or most surprising, the most surprising thing, I think was right. It still to this day remains the most surprising thing to me. It was one of my very, very first sessions, maybe the very first session for my first album. We cut it at Teatro, just north of L.A., and it's the same. It was a Daniel Lanois studio in Oxnard, and it was this movie theater from the 60s, and did a lot of Mexican movies, I guess. And it was quite the place, and it was wired live. Anything you touched was ready to play. It was really quite the thing. Anyway, still one of the most interesting experiences that I ever had was when we had asked Jim Keltner to come down. He's a drummer.
Yeah.
For those of you who don't know him, Jim, just Google his name. He played on...
Google his name and be prepared for many.
Yeah, I mean, he played with George Harrison. He played with John
He was
Lennon.
a traveling Wilbury.
And I didn't really... I sort of found his name on records, Rycuda Records, that I loved. And I didn't really know the legend of the whole thing. And so I sort of innocently said, can we hire this guy? And they all kind of looked at me like I wanted to bring a live grizzly bear into the studio or something.
Yeah.
And
Well, he's got,
he's got... He has personality. He has. But he came in, and I was very impressed. And I never really seen anybody like him either. He didn't look like anybody else I'd ever seen. Well, he looked like he stepped out of I don't know, something that he'd probably done a long time ago. But he had the wristbands and the CPH glasses, in the inside in the middle of the day in the dark, and he just and he's got this
old school,
really cool way of talking, and he's just he was great, and his drum setup took up this whole room, and shakers and rattles and real medicine man stuff, and my eyes just lit up, and I thought,
I'm so glad I asked.
We don't even need the other instruments.
Yeah.
So, because he had, maybe, I don't know, 50 instruments with him. It was amazing.
Yeah.
And anyway, at one point in the song, I always ever played with garage bands and local yahoos who pretty much played over me, or hadn't really mastered volume yet. We'll put it that way.
Yeah.
And volume's hard to master. But anyway, at one point in the song, we were cutting the song live because the room was live, no headphones, and I was standing in the middle, and the musicians were lined up around me at their various stations, and I could see everybody. It was really wonderful. I didn't know that was kind of a unique way to do it.
Right.
So this was a powerful first experience for me, and everything sounded amazing. And if you're familiar with Mark Howard or Daniel Lenoir's recording techniques, there's lots of bleed, and it's lots of mojo, and it's very vibey.
Yeah.
And so I was pretty enamored with the whole thing. And at one point I was singing, and the band dropped out, and it's just the drums, and he's just kind of keeping time. And I looked up, and I saw that he was watching me, and for cues, because he was playing to the vocal.
Right.
And it blew my mind, because I'd never seen anybody listen to me before like that.
Right.
And I realized that, he was, as much as he was laying down a path, he was following what I was doing. Yeah. And I don't know how consciously I was, I was kind of like, don't follow me, I'm lost.
I'm winging it.
I'm winging it. But that didn't, he wasn't easily scared.
That's awesome.
Obviously.
Yeah.
And so that to this day probably remains one of the most one of the most exciting moments. And then I got a lot. You get a lot of that in New Orleans, and you get a lot of that in Mississippi, because people can play without electricity in both places. They just play.
Picking. Yeah.
And so that communing on this plane, and the invisible plane.
Yeah, it's a different connection.
Yeah, and so it was one of those definitive moments that, I would say that was it.
Yeah. You want to do a song for us now?
Sure. What
you gonna do?
Well,
you gonna do something new, because you have a new record coming out next year.
I got a new record coming out. Yep. So yeah, we'll do this one.
Whatever you want to do.
It's called Banshee.
Will it be on the new record?
It will.
Okay. Here you go. Shannon McNally.
Well, you're damned if you do, damned if you don't. Trouble if you will, it's double if you won't. So you watch what you say, you watch what you do. You keep thinking someday they're gonna see the real you. 60 cents on a dollar, more than makes you wanna holler. Tack your smarts till you're numb, it's how they make you feel dumb. You wanna beat 'em to the punch, you wanna trust every hunch, 'cause in the mirror there's a girl who's trying to make it in the world. So woman, weep like the wild winds wail for your Magdalene and your Jezebel. Woman, weep for your sisters gone. Let the names live on with a banshee moan. Then one day you turn a corner, find your doubt goes back burner, and all dismissal implies is where your sanity lies. So you've come through fire, you've set your sights higher, find a merciful moon, but not a moment too soon. So woman, weep like the wild winds wail for your Magdalene and your Jezebel. Woman, weep for your sisters gone. Let the names live on with a Benjamin. Names live on with a Benjamin.
Was beautiful.
Thank you.
Thank you. Showcase, Americana Fest showcase we need to plug?
Yeah. Saturday night, midnight. It's technically Sunday morning.
So bright and early, really.
Bright and early, yeah. Saturday night at the basement.
On 8th, not the basement east.
Not the basement east.
Yes.
The basement.
The OG basement.
Yeah. I don't know if it's west, but it's not east.
No, it's just the basement. Yeah. Okay. Shannon McNally, you guys, she'll have a new record out early next year on Compass. Mm-hmm. We are in the Compass studio, so we're going to give a double plug for that because we love these guys.
We sure do.
Pleasure to meet you.
Yes, thank you.
Stretch your legs. So I know you got out of the car and sat right back down. So,
didn't fall down.
Yeah.
I should tell you that Rodney Grout produced the record.
There you go.
So
that ain't bad.
No.
No.
He's great.
Awesome. All right, we will be back.